I love me a good horror book. Alright guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Zach with Zacks Books, and today I've got for you horror book recommendations part 2. I have already done one of these. We'll link that up here if you have not seen it yet. It's been a while since I've done that one, and so I'm going to do a new one for you. I really love doing horror book stuff, so if you like these kinds of videos, like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know. Obviously, I'm probably going to have 7 more parts of this, so be ready for them. But here we have part 2, and none of these should be repeats from part 1. So let's get this started. First book up is Misery by Stephen King. So I did a top 10 Stephen King books of all time. I've done a top 20. This one fell in my top 10, but after reading a few more, I think this one is no longer in my top 10. But that's a list I got to come up with on a later date when I read more King. So, but I'm recommending this one because it is a really solid story. It's really chilling. It's creepy as hell. It's about an author named Paul Sheldon who gets into a car accident and is rescued by his #1 fan. He writes the Misery series, but he's got the last book he wrote is killing her off, and Annie Wilkes is a retired nurse. I mean, like forced retirement. She's actually like a crazy lunatic. And what happened is she's his #1 fan, and she's basically forcing him to write her back to life, Misery. And the whole story takes place in a cabin, and it's just chilling. The only reason why I did not like this book, and I did say this before, is there are little parts in the book where they stop the actual story and jump to the story he's writing. So like you get chunks of like the Misery book he's writing to bring her back to life. I hated that. I did not like that. I wanted it to stick to just the story. But otherwise, that's the only part about this book I did not like, and that's the only reason why I kept it out of a higher ranking. But I absolutely love this book. I highly recommend it. Please read Misery. It's a really good book. Also, if you are interested in any of the books I'm going to talk about, I'll have them linked down below. Some of the covers you probably cannot buy, but the books themselves you can buy. I will also have my Goodreads link down below for my star rankings on all these, because it is hard to remember every single star ranking I've ever done. So check that out, and if you are interested in the books, check them out down below. Next up is Psycho by Robert Bloch. I think it's Bloch. It might be Bloch. Robert, this book's by you. I really enjoyed this book. It was really it was pretty horrific to read it. Obviously, it pays true to the movie, and obviously, if you've seen the movie, you know what happens in the book. But I have not seen the movie full way through. The only scenes I remember are like the ones that stand out, like the shower scene and the ending when the big truth is revealed. Otherwise, this book was really phenomenal. Loved it. It was a creepy atmosphere. It was a creepy story. The only part that really annoyed me with the audiobook I listened to is whenever something like major would happen, like a loud screeching sound would play, and it just like, it was really annoying. But otherwise, it was a really good book. Loved the premise. Norman Bates, who is the owner of a hotel, Bates Motel, and his mother, who he keeps playing off is, you know, sick up in the main house and nobody can see her. But they have like a little interludes where he's talking to her. And then this woman comes in and he ends up, you know, murdering her. And that's where you get the iconic shower scene. And then a whole bunch of other stuff happens and the truth gets revealed just like in the movie at the end of the book. And it's played off pretty creepily in the book. So, really recommend this book. Pretty sure I gave this 5 stars. Like I said earlier, check out my Goodreads. But yes, I really recommend Psycho. It's a short book. It only took me like maybe an hour, 2 hours to read it. So, really solid book. Highly recommend it. Psycho. Next one up is probably my favorite short story of all time that I have read. And that is Sour Candy by Keelan Patrick Burke. I just recently read Blanky, and Blanky is pretty close. But this one is really fucked up. It's about this guy who, I think it's just a girlfriend. I don't think he's actually married. And he's at the store, and he bumps into this woman who looks absolutely miserable, and this little kid who's like screaming, yelling, hollering, and he drops like a bag of candy or something like that, and the kid gave him a piece of candy, and the guy eats it, and then he starts driving home. Then this big accident happens, and it was the woman, and she's just kind of staring at him. I don't think she says anything, but if she did, I vaguely remember her saying, like, it's your problem now, or something like that. She might not have said anything. It's been a few months since I've read this. But then what ends up happening is the kid becomes the girlfriend he thought he had, like, disappears, doesn't know who the hell he is, and it's a really cool story. I really loved it. The ending is one of the most bizarre things I've ever read, but I really recommend this. This got 5 stars for me. Loved it. So I highly recommend Sour Candy. Next up is one of the creepiest books I've ever read in terms of, like, the actual atmosphere of the book was just really creepy. And that is The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. This book was messed up. Jeez, this book freaked me out. If you do not know the story of The Exorcist, it's about a little girl who gets possessed by the devil, and a whole bunch of crap goes wrong. The mom gets priests to come in and do an exorcism. She goes in and gets tests done. A whole lot of bad things happen, and it's a really creepy atmosphere in this book, and I loved all of it. This is probably one of the only 3 books that actually like had me like scared and freaked out. The other 2 I'd say is probably one of the other ones I'm going to talk about in here, and the other one was Pet Sematary. Those are the only like 3 that have had me like, holy shit. I did this in a reading vlog with 3 classic horrors. If you have not seen that video, check it out up here. It's been a little while. I think I did this, Amityville, and Haunting of Hill House. 2 of the 3 of those were really good. But yes, The Exorcist, really creepy book. I really recommend it. Do not read this in the dark alone. I will give you that recommendation. I'm not saying I did, but I would definitely not do that. So, The Exorcist, really creepy book. Next up is another Stephen King, Cujo. This was one that I did a reading vlog on. I really love this book. It's really creepy. It's terrifying. I own a dog, and so when you're reading about a dog starts going rabid and murderous, kind of makes you take a look at your dog a few times, which I did a lot when I was reading this book. Obviously, I know nothing's wrong with her, but yes, really enjoyed this book. Pretty sure I gave it 5 stars. It's about a mother and her son who the mom is like having an affair with a guy, and she drives to go see him with her son. And little did she know that Cujo, the Saint Bernard that was part of the family over there, gets bit by a bat and turns rabid, kills the family, and her son get trapped in a car, blazing hot heat, and I'm pretty sure she gets stuck in there for like a day and a half, maybe 2 days. And the ending of this book is different than the movie. So if you've seen the movie and you think that ending was kind of happy, you're going to be sad with the ending of Cujo, the book. Not going to spoil anything besides that. Just know that it is way different, and you will be a little more upset with the ending of the book than the movie. So, really enjoyed this. It's a creepy atmosphere, and it's a situation you hope that you really never find yourself in. Obviously, with new technology now, like cell phones and stuff, it's a little bit easier to get away from, but back in the 70s and 80s, really crappy situation to be in. So, but yes, that is Cujo. Highly recommend it. Really scary book. Next up is probably the biggest surprise of 2021 so far, and that's Brother by Anya Alborn. This book was really fucking good. I really enjoyed the story of this. I would not be surprised if this book actually cracks my top 5, maybe top 10 books of 2021 at all. Books besides Stephen King has written, I think this is already in possibly my top 10. If not, then for sure the top 15. This was kind of like a hidden book that I really didn't know existed. I think Danielle was the one who recommended this. It's about a guy who gets, at the time he's a kid, but he gets picked up by this family of like hicks, and A whole bunch of crap goes wrong. He keeps getting told all this stuff. The older brother, Rebel, is a pure ass, and I really hated him in the book. Michael, it's kind of like, it's sort of like Freak the Mighty. I feel like that's kind of a stretch, though, where you have like one person who's like a boss and like in control of this big guy who's like a dopey kind of dude. But obviously Freak the Mighty is about two kids, and it's a lot nicer than this. The only reason I reference that is because the older kid, which is Rebel, is smarter and kind of bosses the other guy around. Kind of like in a darker way. It's kind of like a darker Freak the Mighty, I'll say that. Because if I just vaguely say Freak the Mighty, it's going to be way different. So it's a darker twist of on Freak the Mighty. I really enjoyed this book. The ending has a really solid twist to it. And the crap that Rebel has Michael do towards the end is just horrific. And you feel really bad for him. And then when you think it's going to go well for him, another bad thing happens to him at the very end. And it's just a really good book. I really couldn't even stop reading this. I think this was part of a reading vlog, but I vlogged like maybe one break in between this book because I just could not put the damn thing down. So I really recommend this, brother. Really solid book. The next four I'm going to talk about all kind of fall in probably my top 15 or 20 from all of 2020 last year. And the first one I'm going to talk about is my second or third all-time favorite book that's not by Stephen King, and that's The Troop by Nick Cutter. If you watched me earlier on when I first started the channel, I would not shut up about this book. This book is creepy, horrific, it's gross, it's one of the most disturbing books that I've ever read. It's about this camp that basically gets invaded by this worm, and it kills it's so gross. It's hard to put it in the words. It's this worm that I forget how it spreads. It's either through the air, germs, or like you eat something. But it ends up getting into like more than half the kids, and what it does is it's kind of like a tapeworm. For like dogs. It like eats all the food inside of your body no matter how much you eat, and then it just decides to just start eating you from like the inside out. And it gets really horrific. It's really gross. The ending has a really solid twist, and I love it. There's only like one scene I hated, and that's when they kill a turtle, but it's because I love turtles. But that's the only scene I really didn't like about this whole thing, and it's purely disturbing. Gave this 5 stars. I really recommend The Troop. It's creepy as hell. The next book I'm going to talk about is the Amityville Horror by Jay Anson. This book is really creepy. Really love this book. Again, like I mentioned earlier, I read this with The Exorcist and The Haunting of Hill House. This book got 5 stars right away. Creepy atmosphere of the Lutz family who move into this house, and it's purely haunted. All this bad shit starts happening to him, like really bad. A priest flees the house. He wants nothing to do with the house. And every time they call him, he gets like bad things happen to the priest, even though he's like miles away from the house. This is an actual like true event that took place. The Amityville Horror. There's a couple of movies about this, and it's really creepy. It's a scary atmosphere. And the flow of the book goes smoothly for me. There were some scenes where you get more of the priest's perspective versus the family, where I more wanted like just the family perspective, but it was necessary to kind of have it split up. But I really love this book. It's really creepy. I've been looking for the hardcover edition of this book for a while because the hardcover looks really cool. But I found this old edition that my dad actually gave me, so thank you for this, Dad. He gave me a whole bunch of books recently. This was one of them. He also gave me a 1945 version of The Great Gatsby, which is a really small edition, so you'll see that coming up soon maybe. But yes, this book was really solid, really cool, 5 stars. I really recommend this book. It's creepy as hell. So, Amityville Horror, really good book. The next book I'm going to talk about is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. This book is probably, besides the Amityville Horror, my all-time favorite non-Stephen King book. of all time. So this is about a girl who, when she's younger, she meets this other girl who's kind of like a reject. They become friends, and as time goes on, they're in high school. Something horrific happens to one of them, and she ends up being like possessed by this weird spirit, and a whole bunch of bad crap starts happening to them. There's a girl who's like a big bully, and what ends up happening to her is she ends up getting kind of like in the troop. She gets like this big like tapeworm in her stomach, and the way that Grady Hendrix describes how it gets out of her body with a dog just ripping it out of her mouth is just, ugh, it's so gross. It's a really creepy book. Gave it 5 stars. Again, this is another book where if you watch my channel early on, another book I would not shut up about. This is probably my all-time favorite non-Stephen King book. And if you include Stephen King, this is probably in my top 5 books of all time. Probably falling at number 5. So this book is phenomenal. I really recommend this book, and this book is great. Please read this. Last but not least, I have to end it on a Stephen King. I decided to not talk about any of my top 3 favorite Kings, and my number 4 favorite King is, my number 4 and 5 favorite King are not horror related, which is The Green Mile and The Long Walk. So my next one that would be in line is Christine. This book was really good. Not a lot of people talk about this book because there's a change in narrative when it goes from first person to third, back to first, which a lot of people did not like. I actually enjoyed it. Gave it 5 stars. It probably sat at number 4 all-time favorite Stephen King for a while. Then after I read The Green Mile, and after I more thought about The Long Walk, it kind of pushed it back a little more, but this book is really good. It's scary. It's horrific. A 1958 Plymouth Fury is the car of my dreams. Unfortunately, it's not the 1950s or 60s, so they don't make them anymore. However, if I ever got enough money, I would just buy one. I'd tell someone to make one for me. But that's probably not going to happen, so I'm just going to have to live with just having the books in my little toy replica in my Stephen King room. So, but this is a really creepy book. Really loved it. I like the book's description of the friendship between Dennis and Arnie more than the movie. It goes more in depth from like when they're in grade school, and it's like really sad from Dennis's point of view, watching Arnie just like descend into madness and just turn into an asshole, like after everything they'd been through. Dennis is the jockey kid. Arnie's like this dorky nerd kid. And Arnie ends up stumbling across this 58 Plymouth Fury in this guy's yard. And he gets it, and the car ends up being like possessed, and it can heal itself. Darnell is the owner of the garage where he keeps Christine. His death in the book is way different than in the movie. In the movie, he gets crushed behind the steering wheel. In the book, Christine actually chases him down to his house and like kills him in his house, like on the staircase, I think, too, which is really creepy. I really recommend this book. It's scary. It's just a really good book. Not a lot of people talk about Christine as much as I think it should be talked about. So, yeah, there you have Christine. Please read it. Alright guys, so these were 10 more horror recommendations I have for you. These are all books I loved, at least 4 stars or better. If you have any other recommendations, let me know down below. Otherwise, I will have probably a part 3 coming out at some point because I've read plenty of horror books. Yeah, this is really fun. I enjoyed doing this. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. And again, let me know if you have any horror books that you're recommending. Let me know in the comments. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Later.